On today's show, we'll recap the Leafs 4-3 win over the Red Wings. We'll talk about how Fraser Minten and William Nylander are more linked than we realize. And what are we thankful for on this holiday season? All that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host Dave Morassutti. Toronto with another preseason victory over the Detroit Red Wings 4-3. They take it in overtime. William Nylander bookends the Leaf goals. Beautiful one in the first, and then ends up scoring another in overtime to get the dub. Dave, what are a couple things that stuck out to you about last night's game?
It was nice for them to win a game in overtime with me there. I had a little bit of
That's right. You had a streak going.
I did. So again, sitting with a friend of mine that I went to the last preseason game with, we're like, okay, so when does over? We're just gonna wait for overtime, right? Because every time he and I go to a game, it goes to overtime. I'm like, it was 3-3. I'm like, oh, there's still time. Maybe they can break it. And then it was like 2 minutes left in the game. I'm like, yeah, we're going overtime.
Yeah.
So
good third period though. I thought they played better in the third.
oh yeah, they were all over the Red Wings in the third period. I think going into overtime, the shots were 37-20.
Mm-hmm.
It was no contest that the Leafs held the distinct advantage in that especially in the third period.
Which you like to see because when you put the two teams up on the chalkboard and you compare them, one was an NHL club, the other was not. And if you would have looked at the score, and really, if you looked at the game, you watched the game through the first half, it was a pretty even hockey game. Like it wasn't necessarily Toronto dominating in the fashion that you would have expected them to. Like the books, Vegas, when they saw which rosters were playing for each other's team, the spread was like 2.5 goals for the Maple Leafs. And obviously, that's not what ended up happening. But you would have expected for Toronto to kind of take it to Detroit a little more. And that being said, Dave, is there any concerns here? That's a couple of games now where the Leafs, their stars have been out there against a B squad, we'll say, for the opposition, and they lost the one game in Montreal where it was very much like that, and then this one, they were able to sneak out a win in overtime, but it took them until the third period to really look like they were the more dominant team. Any concerns about that?
No, in my opinion, no. The Stars were, yeah, it doesn't bode well when you put it like that. But just watching them, they were all over the Red Wings in this game. And you know what? The Leafs also took a lot of penalties,
Yeah.
particularly Simon Benoit. So that impacts also what the Leafs are doing because they were on the penalty kill for so much. Although Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner on the penalty kill, it's looking pretty lethal.
Yeah, there's some danger there. There could be some danger. And I liked what Sheldon Keefe actually said post game about the penalty kill. He talked about how, those two, what they were doing out there, and you could throw Nylander into the fold as
Yeah.
well. Short shifts. Like they were just being smart and they were just doing short shifts. And he said they had like 8 different players filter through, 8 different forwards filtering through on the penalty kill last night. And that might be what he wants to do. Like it may not be the traditional. Okay, you've got 2 guys who'll kill for a little bit, and they go to another 2 guys. Like it's not going to be so cut and dry like that. It's not just going to be binary where you got PK1, PK2, 4 groupings. It seems as though he's going to carry this over, and he wants to have a bunch of different players who can do a lot of different things and keep guys fresh as possible. So it makes sense. And it also gets you a chance to get your big boys out there more often. And, there's more space. There's a less player out there, right? And sometimes when play breaks down for the opposition on the power play, it does give an opportunity for the Maple Leafs to get their guys out there and get a scoring chance out of it. And we've seen it happen already a couple times throughout the preseason. Power play looked good. They were snapping it around. You saw scored a couple of goals on the power play. Austin Matthews nets his first of the preseason. That was good to see, obviously. Fraser Minten, though, there's a lot of eyes on Minten going into this game based on, the fact that he's still in camp and definitely battling for a roster position. There's a legitimate opportunity for this kid, 19 years old, to make this team out of training camp. And we didn't think that was going to be the case when camp first started. But he's earned his way, earned his chance to continue to play with this team. And last night there was a lot of eyes on him as he had an opportunity to continue to solidify himself as an everyday NHLer potentially. What'd you make of Fraser Minten live in person?
Just unrelenting pressure especially in the offensive zone. Like, he didn't stop. There was no
Dude, that hand-eye play, like, early on, it's
yeah,
like, everyone's watching you. Everyone knows that
exactly.
tonight's game is not about Austin, it's not about Willie. Although they scored, they made beautiful plays. A lot of people were watching Fraser Minten to see what this guy was gonna do, and real early in the game, he makes a big play, little hand-eye, and then gets a shot off. I was like, "Okay, buddy knows he's auditioning for a spot on this opening night roster."
Yeah, he just looked like a player that, with all the pressure, and look, I even said I was coming into this game going to be watching this guy. Like, and I probably wasn't the only one. There's a lot of people who were hyping up this thing, him getting this final tryout, and he didn't bat an eye, right? He looked the part. Him and Nyes, like, that line was just relentless, right?
Humming, man. And they've been humming, like, all preseason. Like, that's a duo. Like, we talk about how the Leafs don't necessarily look at their lineup as trios, as full lines, but they look at them as pairs. And that's a pair that's working, and that's a young pair that could be on this team for a long, long time. Whether or not he actually ends up earning a spot for opening night and sticks around the full season still remains to be seen. But he definitely continues to impress and turn heads. And I think that he was asked also about after the game yesterday, like, oh, it seems like you've improved a little bit. In the face-off circle, in the face-off dot, like, what's is that something that you're trying to do a little bit more of? And yesterday he went a grand total of 6-2 in face-off, so in 75% of his draws. And he said, yeah, every day that's something that I'm working towards doing. It's obviously a lot more difficult to win faceoffs in the NHL than the dub, I would imagine. But he said that, a big reason for why he's seeing success and he's improving there is that, Manny Malhotra is still there. And, I know that Manny Malhotra is a guy whose role on this team is kind of diminished a little bit, came in and he was one of the, spotlight head coaches a couple of years ago. He was manning the power play. And then things didn't quite go right, and they brought in Spencer Carberry, and he kind of went more into the background. And he's still somewhat into the background, but when he was playing, like, he's one of the best face-off dudes there were. And I remember when he was coaching in Vancouver, that team became one of the more dominant face-off teams in the NHL. And we're seeing over the course of the last 3-4 years, Toronto's becoming the same thing. They're always in the top 5 in faceoffs. You see Austin Matthews always has improved his faceoff numbers consistently, and Fraser Minten's taking full advantage every practice out there working with Manny Malhotra. And this is what Minten said. Like, this came from the horse's mouth himself, and that's big. Like, obviously, being a center, a big part of the job is taking faceoffs, winning draws, and establishing possession. And if he's going to go out there and win 75% of those bad boys, that's going to get some attention. from a lot of people, including Sheldon Keefe. But if Fraser Minten makes this team, Dave, it does probably mean a couple of things would end up happening. There'll be a bit of a trickle down effect, which could impact William Nylander's role on this team. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back. We'll talk about what I mean by that exactly, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. We got it's Thanksgiving weekend, so we've got some things that we're thankful for from the Toronto Maple Leafs that we'll get into. And then we got a little bit of a Thanksgiving foods power rankings that we're going to get into as well. So a bit of a fun show to end things off on. But before we get into all that, Dave, why don't we tell all the good folks about one of today's show sponsors? It's our pals over at Bird Dogs.
Yes, Mike, today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. It is the clothing line that makes you look good because they have that stretch khaki look and designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving a truly sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same things as Lululemon, but fit way better. They're better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton, and they fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khakis, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And they use an anti-sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day. They are functional. They work for many different things. I like to wear them when I'm golfing. Sometimes if I need to throw something when I go into the pool, Bird Dogs are so versatile. They work for so many things. And you get some great swag if you order with Bird Dogs as well. I don't have it with me, but I do have the tumbler. That was the one that I got. I also have the hat that was given with another Bird Dogs order that I placed. And you can go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl, enter the promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnhl for free water bottle checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs. We're a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast. So if it's your first time stumbling upon us, appreciate you giving us a chance if you've made it this far. And if you enjoy the conversation and you want to stay locked in and tuned into what's going on with the Maple Leafs all season long, make sure that you do subscribe to us. You can find our podcast wherever you find your podcast at, whatever streaming platform that you use. We're also up on YouTube, and we got new content coming out each and every day, Monday through Friday. It's all Leafs all the time. And look, there's only one more game, preseason game before we get rolling here with the regular season next Wednesday. So make sure that you are subscribing to our podcast and keeping locked on to what's going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right, Dave. The big talking point towards the end of camp is obviously Fraser Minten. We were just talking about, he's a player who a lot of eyes have been on him. He's going to play again in tomorrow's game against the Detroit Red Wings. Keefe announced that after the game. Not a lot of the regulars, I believe, are going to end up playing. The game against Detroit was kind of the final hoorah for the main club. But Minten will get in there and get kind of a final look. A bunch of guys will get a bit of a final look. Pontus Holmberg, I would imagine, will also be given a fair shake to try and get a final look-see to see if he can make this squad. A guy who actually I've really been impressed with, man. Like there's a couple of dudes who aren't going to make this team that deserve to make this team. If it was a real 23-man roster, that would definitely be on the open night roster. But unfortunately, due to cap reasons, there's going to be a couple of guys who get sent down where it's just not going to make Leaf fans happy, I would imagine. But back to Fraser Minten. If this guy does make the team, it's going to be in that third line center role. And why that's important is because that is a role that has been played by one William Nylander all camp long. And as we have discussed, this isn't a team that can afford to carry an extra forward, which means Minton's going to have to play. And if he plays in that 3C hole, that moves Nylander back on the wing, doesn't it, Dave?
It sort of does, yeah. Um,
Like it does. How
yeah,
can you configure this lineup
yeah,
without him moving him back to the wing?
yeah. And you know what? I was we talked about our concerns with that line, and they didn't look amazing, but they didn't look bad. And Nylander scoring 2 goals. I mean, obviously one of them being on special teams, and then 3 on 3. But like watching 5
They didn't score at 5-on-5 there, Dave, as a line, if that's weird. You're
oh,
getting
so it's tough to say whether because I know I was listening. I mean, I watched the broadcast after, and like
Mhm.
Mike Johnson says, move him back to the wing, and I'm like, but he didn't score a 5-on-5. The goals he scored were not even with the guys he was going to be playing with that 5-on-5.
I know. Like, it's not that I don't like, I think he is better suited to play the wing, don't get me wrong, like,
Look at how
going
yeah he looked way more comfortable in terms of offensively.
for sure. For sure he does, and he's always going to. Like, that is like, there's just less responsibility and allows him to focus on offense. Like, we all understand that. And I'm not gonna sit here and bang the table and say, "No, Nylander needs to play down the middle." Like, that's not the case. I probably would prefer him to play on the wing. I just prefer him to play on Matthews' wing instead of Tavares' wing. That's the only sticking point that I will make. Like, if this happens, if Fraser Minten wins a job and they audition him and he gets those 9 games at the 3C, that clearly is going to move Nylander to the wing. Whether that's on the first line or second line remains to be seen. But that is something that we will see happen. If Fraser Minten makes the club, it's going to push Nylander back onto the wing. But it's interesting because it does make this lineup look a lot different when he is on the wing. It does break things up. And, to get back to what we were talking about just before we went to break, I know Sheldon Keefe loves his pairs. Like, he talks about the pairs, Matthews and Marner, and Tavares and Nylander have been a pair for 3 years now. And maybe Minton and Nyes are becoming that other pair. And just the way that they've played and the chemistry that they've been able to develop throughout camp. They've played like 4 games together, I think, through training camp so far, maybe 5. They've played a lot together, not to mention playing with each other, at the prospects tournament last year and this year. Or I guess Nyes might not have been at the
Not
prospects
last
tournament
year, no,
last
he
year.
wasn't there.
NCAA would have been in college by then, but still being able to develop that chemistry. Um, I don't think it's a terrible thing, man. And if Fraser Minton is ready for the challenge and ready to make an impact on the Maple Leafs as a 19-year-old, I think he should be given that opportunity if it's deserved. And as of now, I honestly think it is. And I think it could be an added benefit to have somebody playing down the middle like Fraser Minton who can do it well and, provide a little bit of offense, but also is responsible in his own zone, and that moves Nylander up the lineup, get him more minutes, and allow him to just go back to the wing and do what he does best, and that's score goals. So this could turn out to be a very positive thing out of training camp if Minton can make it. It really lengthens the lineup and adds just a little bit more of a scoring touch on all 3 lines, I believe.
I do think so. The chemistry, as you said, is apparent, and when you look at why he would make the lineup, it's because we were trying to find that answer at third line center. Nylander, you say, okay, he can do it, but Minton looks actually more comfortable, and it makes that line that much better. Like, that's the energy line. When we talk about like getting that energy line, they bring it. So, and I do like that Nyes can be featured and they can maybe take advantage of certain matchups, but also if Sheldon Key feels like it, he can throw them into tough matchups as well because they've been able to handle those matchups too. Like
50% D zone starts last night. Like, that was part of
exactly.
that was part of the process of what Sheldon Keefe has been wanting to see with Fraser Minton. Like, the point of him playing last night in that role was we're going to put him in situations and see and basically say, hey, sink or swim. Now, it wasn't against a full NHL lineup against Detroit, but it was against Montreal, and he did succeed in a lot of those matchups, which is why he's still sticking around in training camp and has a legitimate chance. And that was what was on display last night. That was what they were looking for. Not necessarily, okay, can they continue to create offense and create chances, but can they continue to play well defensively? Can they, is he going to be able to, work his stick in the defensive end? Is he going to be, a good puck support for the defensemen and allow them to break the puck out? Is he going to be in the right spots defensively? Like that was really what they were going to be looking for in last night's game, and I would imagine even in the game tomorrow against Detroit.
I do think so. Yeah, because we know that this final game is going to be tougher to figure out because every team throws out just like
I think Detroit's putting out their big boys. Like they didn't bring him to Toronto, but I
actually
think a
that would make
lot of
sense
them are going to be
is
playing.
at home. You
Yeah.
try to give the home fans a little bit of value. Like, luckily, I got the NHL lineup rather than the B
Yes.
squad. It would have
Yeah.
been kind of weird to do that to Leafs fans, but yeah, I do want again this with Minton. I feel like he should be on the team at least for the 9 games to see what he has. Quite and the good thing is they've tried Nylander as that third line center. So if they feel like Minton's just not ready to go, they can send him back, put Nylander at third line center.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely, they could do that still. Um, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting, final week or 5 days, 4 days, whatever it is, until they got to submit the opening night roster and the lineups, and they'll make those tough decisions. There's a couple more guys. I think Pontus Holmberg's been a player who has, to me, also earned an opportunity to play on this team. I thought last night again he was kind of all over it and played extremely well, showing that he wants to be on this club. Getting an opportunity to play with Camp and Reeves last night on the fourth line, again proving himself. Hey, I belong here. We'll see if he can, if he can win a job too. It's nice to see that there are more people earning jobs or trying to earn jobs than spots. It just means that the depth is going to be there for this team, regardless if they make it on night one or not. Once they get up there, which we know Holmberg will play games if he does get sent down, he's going to, play well. we can imagine. All right, we'll do like a roster prediction, I suppose, for Monday's show, and kind of get into all of that and get into the final battles and whatnot. So we'll save that for Monday. But we do have a holiday that is coming up this weekend. Thanksgiving. It's a pretty good holiday. It's a solid family holiday with some good eating. So we'll take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll get into 3 Leafs things that we are thankful for. Dave, what are we thankful for this holiday season when it comes to our beloved Toronto Maple Leafs hockey squad? And then we're gonna do a little fun power ranking. Power ranking our Thanksgiving food items. So I'm excited for that one. Should be fun. So we'll get into all that in just a moment. But first, let me tell you guys about one of today's show sponsors, and it's Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent with fast and with Indeed's suite of power hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Indeed knows when you're growing your business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Indeed knows that finding people with the right skills makes all the difference when you're hiring a team of one. Indeed knows that hiring needs to be cost effective when you're running your own business. And visit indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. Just go to indeed.com/locked on, indeed.com/locked on. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. Maple Leafs with a 4-3 win in overtime, thanks to old Bill Nye, the Risha guy. How about that first goal that he scored, though? We didn't really touch on that, but what was the pop like in the building after that one? Because that was a beauty of a goal.
Because it was one of those where it's like you're like, oh, like the gasp, but then knowing the goal scored, so it was like a quick transition to that. That building was bumping.
Mm,
There's something about preseason hockey. I know it's not the most exciting to watch sometimes, but because the tickets are significantly cheaper and you can get kids into the lower bowl, like more kids into the lower bowl, it just adds a different vibe and energy. So
true.
that was a good crowd last night.
Nice. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Okay, let's get into a couple of these little fun little exercises that we're going to wrap up today's show with. First and foremost, three things that we're thankful for. Three Maple Leafs things that we're thankful for. Dave, give me your list of three.
Well, things I'm thankful for. One, we got the Austin Matthews contract out of our hairs. It is done. It is signed. We know we have Austin Matthews here for the next few years. So that was the first thing I was definitely thankful for going into this season. Second for me, the young kids are showing up, right? As we've just been talking about this whole show, but seeing the future kind of, there was always a talk that the Leafs prospects weren't exactly high caliber, right? You kind of hear that how low they are on maybe on the defensive side, it's not quite there, and it takes some time for these defensive prospects to bring themselves up. But I do like how the drafting and developing seems to be getting a little more back. Is the Leafs are not the Montreal Canadiens when it comes to the rebuild plan, right? I see a plan with the Leafs. I don't know about Montreal. I've been very suspect of their drafting the last few years. You know, choosing Slafkovsky over a guy like even Logan Cooley, things like
Well,
that.
I mean,
There's
yeah,
time,
hindsight's
obviously.
2020.
I can't say Slafkovsky's a bust or anything, but I think they kind of they was caught up in the whole, oh, is it going to be Shane Wright? But then they went Slafkovsky, and then I'm like, they might not even be the top players in that draft when all things are said and done.
Yeah, it's possible Logan Cooley could turn out to be the best player in that draft, but that happens all the time. Like
Yep,
it's not often. I guess there is an absolute slam dunk Austin Matthews or Connor
true.
Bedard in the draft, and unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're a Maple
Yep.
Leafs fan, thankfully, if you will.
So I'm thankful Logan Cooley is not on the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, the Canadians won the lottery in a year where there wasn't that dominant pick at the top of the draft. That could. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Slavkovsky, he still could be a player, man. Like you might be eating your words in 3 years if that guy's out there ripping goals on the Maple Leafs left, right, and center because he's a big boy, and if he puts it together the way that scouts expect him to, well, you never know what could happen with that guy. Um, so that was two. That's two
Three,
things. Three. Okay.
three.
So there's your three. Very similar to my three here. I did have Austin Matthews, something to be thankful for. Still one of the best players in the NHL. Like he's only 2 years removed from legitimately being the league MVP and voted as the best hockey player in the NHL by his peers when he won the Ted Lindsay. So, I think we definitely had to be thankful that that contract is signed, sealed, and delivered. He's here for another 5 seasons, technically, including this one. So Austin Matthews, go out there, rip another 50, 60 goals, and do what you got to do to get this team as deep as they possibly can go. Hopefully, win the big one. Thankful for the Leaf scouting staff. I don't think they get enough credit for being able to kind of find some gems, whether that's in free agency in the past couple of years. They've been able to find guys like Michael Bunting, and definitely you look at the draft though. The amateur scouts getting Matthew Nyes and Fraser Minten in the second round. Like these guys look like they're going to be players. And when you can find talent like that a little bit later in drafts that aren't day one picks, that's really when you start to build out depth. Like, yeah, you're gonna hit most of the time on your first round picks, but are you hitting on those second round picks? are hitting on those third round picks. Topi Nimala, a third round selection. So that's where you're definitely going to make or break your team. I don't know if you've been watching what's also been happening, with some of their other prospects, but Brandon Lazowski has been on fire out in the WHL.
Hmm.
I think he just had a hat trick the other night. So there's another player. Nikita Gribyankin is killing it in the KHL. He was like a fifth round pick not too long ago. And then you've got some other goalies who are doing really well. So there's a lot to be thankful for. There's been some quality draft picks by the Maple Leafs over the years, and I think we're getting a glimpse at a couple of them here with Minten and Matthew Nyes. So thankful for the scouting staff that finally seem to be churning out some young talent for the Maple Leafs. Something to be happy about and thankful for. And then finally, I guess pretty much like I think thankful that this team is just consistently putting out a entertaining product. I know that it's been a long time since they've actually won something, but they're always one of the more entertaining teams at the very least, right? It's a team that's gone out and for the regular season at the very most have been extremely dominant. Consistently topping the 100-point mark. Where you're seeing guys, get 100+ points in a season. We just saw the great year that Austin Matthews had 2 seasons ago. Mitch Marner last year, 99 points, and then was a Selke finalist. And you saw the playoffs that they had. They finally got the monkey off the back, winning a round. The captain, John Tavares, with an overtime winner to seal the deal. Morgan Riley was playing out of his mind throughout that. So, just the fact that we've seen some real entertaining hockey over the last few seasons, because it could be Detroit. It could have been the 10 years prior to this Austin Matthews
Hmm.
era. It could be what we've seen go down in Arizona over the last few years, or what's happening with the San Jose Sharks. The Maple Leafs are a good team. When you really pull out big picture, they're a terrific team that's been ultra competitive for the last 6, 7 years. And, I'm thankful that we as a podcast are able to cover a fun team. It gives us something to talk about every single day. And for that, thanks for everyone involved for keeping this thing afloat. From Kyle Dubas, who kind of kickstarted things with this organization. Brendan Shanahan, I guess the Shana plan is what this is all about. And now even Brad Treliving, who's done some good things, we think. So far so good when it comes to the moves that he's been able to make to try and help bolster this roster and bolster this team to try and make a little bit longer of a playoff run than we had a season ago. So just big picture in general, just thankful that we got an entertaining product to watch here in the city of Toronto. Um, all right, Dave, really quickly, we're going to go through Thanksgiving food items power rankings. These could be controversial. There's nothing more controversial online than food topics. Like
Yep.
anytime people talk about food, that's when people really, really get into it. Like I remember when I was hosting Leafs Launch, we could sit there, we could make great points about the Maple Leafs, about the game, analysis, trades, whatever. We would just talk for 2 hours on the Leafs, but we had like a little 3-minute bit where we talked about food or something, and the texts would just start flooding in, the texts and tweets. It's insane. You get nothing. No one cares to comment on any analysis, but the second you start to talk about food, boom, everyone has an input. So,
Mike, we're Italian. How many family dinners have probably gotten over the top, like fights almost break out over food discussions?
a lot, a lot, a lot. And like Thanksgiving is like arguably the food holiday of the year,
Yeah.
right? Like Thanksgiving dinner is just massive. Like I know that I'm sure your family does it big. I know my family makes a big feast every single year. We get family down to celebrate together. So I love Thanksgiving. It's a really great holiday to stuff yourself with some great food. And that's why I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit of a power ranking for Thanksgiving food items, because again, it's controversial. Some people don't like a lot of the items that are out there. And some people are big on stuffing, some aren't. Some people like ham, some people want the turkey. It's interesting to see how people feel about some of the popular food items that are consumed on Thanksgiving. So let's get right to it, Dave. Let's go 5 through 1. Your power rankings of Thanksgiving food items.
Number 5 for me is sweet potato casserole.
Oh, is that a staple for you and your family on Thanksgiving?
Not usually. It's only recently because we never really had sweet potatoes, and then we just decided we want to incorporate. I mean, you want the thing with dinners and stuff, and like people like to not only have foods, but like certain colors of like Thanksgiving, right? So orange, you want to get
Yeah.
orange in there somehow. Sweet potato casserole is probably the easiest way to do it, and it tastes like. I was like, why weren't we having this before? It's so good.
Why did you hide this from me my entire life, Mom?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I gotta give it to you, man. Sweet potato pie, sweet potato casseroles, they're pretty solid. A little brown sugar in there. It's a good it's a good one to start off with. All right, number 4, your power ranking.
Number 4 for me, you can't have a Thanksgiving dinner without potatoes. Like
Mhm.
we have the potato casserole, more of a vegetable-y type of dip, but now we don't do mashed potatoes in my family. My mother actually makes, I know, this is where the controversy might come in. My mother actually makes the potatoes with the turkey in the same pan. It is so good. You get that the bit of the turkey flavor with the juices in the potatoes. They get a really nice brown color. So good. I don't even need mashed potatoes. Those are good enough for me.
I don't know how I feel about that, man. I don't if you invited me over for Thanksgiving, you didn't tell me that, and I showed up expecting mashed potatoes, and I don't get mashed potatoes, I would be livid.
Okay,
I
how
would
about
like,
this? I'll
don't
give
get me
you a
wrong.
mash and you can mash those potatoes because that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could do it myself, but don't get me wrong, like, that does sound delicious. It sounds really
Mhm.
good just the way that, you like a bake, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just the juices are gonna filter into your potato, and it'll be really, really tasty. You'll get some flavor out of it. But it's a staple, bro.
I know.
That's a staple. Oh my goodness. All right. Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
So number 3
Number
for
3.
me is turkey. I know not everyone is a big fan of turkey, but like we have turkey. I go into a turkey coma.
You
From
white or dark meat guy?
it doesn't matter for me. Just give me anything. Like if because it used to be I'd only have the dark. I especially like the legs or something like that. Like get me
Yeah.
that bone. But I've grown into really appreciating the white meat. I have, especially like get the breasts and stuff like that.
Nah, you like your breasts, huh? You like
So
your white breasts.
maybe
uh,
with some good
just
gravy too with it. I prefer the white meat more because you can really enjoy the gravy with it.
honestly, yeah, that's where I'm at too. I think when I'm eating white meat, I do douse it in gravy more so than the dark meat. So, just for obvious, it's a little drier. It's not as juicy. So just kind of load her up with gravy, and that just masks some of the dryness of that meat. All right, number 2 for you.
Growing up, I hated stuffing. I don't know what it was about me that didn't like stuffing, but my mother decided to change the recipe and made it an Italian flavor stuffing. She gets some nice Italian herbs and spices in there. She changed the game. She changed the game. I am now a pro stuffing guy.
Dave Morassutti, big stuffing guy
Yeah.
late in his life. All right.
Mhm.
And number 1, the top food item on the table at a Morassutti Thanksgiving is
If there's no apple pie, it is not a Thanksgiving. I'm huge apple pie, and sometimes, depending on who it is, they'll add a little bit of caramel drizzle with it and
oh, yeah,
ice
a little
cream.
crumble,
Yeah,
a
and
little
add some
crumble and
crumble with it
caramel.
too. Oh, I have to apple pie. I know like people are like pumpkin pies and things like that. Apple pie is the goat for me.
Warm or cold?
Warm,
I
warm with
love
some
apple
ice
pie.
cream is the way to go.
Warm apple pie. Low key, like you go to Burger King and you get like an apple pie turnover. They're
Never
actually
had
low
one of those.
key delicious. McDonald's is more so known for them, but like Burger King's got a really good
Mm.
apple turnover. Just an FYI, if you're ever driving past and you're like, I kind of want something to snack on, that's an option. All right, solid list. Solid list. Okay, mine's a little bit different than yours. A little different. Um, there's some similarities. We'll get to them. Number 5 for me. I have pumpkin pie at number 5. It's Thanksgiving. It's pumpkin season. All
Yep.
right, it's pumpkin season, and you got to have pumpkin pie there. I am a big pumpkin pie guy. Like that was growing up. I get apple away from me. Do not care. Pumpkin is the way to go. Put some whipped cream on that bad boy, and away you go. Um, I still don't understand why we can't get pumpkin pie like year round. It's like it's only acceptable within this month. I understand pumpkins are only in season, so
Yeah.
I get it, but like it's a delicious, delicious pie that should be consumed year round, in my opinion. But pumpkin pie comes in at number 5 for me. Number 4. Here's a surprise for you. I love a good boiled, like cut up boiled carrots. Love them. Put some butter and some sugar on those, some brown sugar. Delicious. So boiled carrots to me, one of the first things I'm tossing on my plate.
You can have carrots any other time of the year, and you have to have them at Thanksgiving.
I never, but the thing is, I rarely do I ever actually do it. Like I never make carrots.
Okay, here's a controversial food take. My nonna, with her mashed potatoes, will throw in some carrots, and it's the bomb.
Well, yeah, you can do that with your mashed potatoes.
Not many people do that.
You can put your carrots in there, you can put your peas in there, you can do a lot of things with
Potato.
the mashed potatoes. Not that you make, like, the full dish that way, but on your plate, if you're like,
No,
"I need to
no,
make some
she
room for
mashes
stuff."
it all together.
Oh, she's mashing
Yeah,
carrots? I don't know
they're pretty,
how much
it's
I
pretty
like that.
good. It is pretty good. It's
I mean, it's kinda like a potato salad, I suppose, where you do have, like,
I think
shredded
she did it
carrots.
because wouldn't sometimes always have her vegetables, and so she's like, "This kid's having his vegetables, putting in the mashed potatoes."
Alright, so I got carrots coming in at number 4. Number 3, this is an important one, Dave, that I can't believe was off your list, and maybe it kinda slipped your mind, but gravy, dog. Gravy. You get the
I thought
gravy
gravy
from.
would have been implied with the turkey. If you don't have turkey,
But
it's
it's
gravy.
not. No, because it doesn't even have to the gravy on the potatoes is where it's at, and the gravy on your it's just you put it on everywhere, on your stuffing, you put it on everything. That's why it's so key and important, and when we're talking about Thanksgiving food items, gravy has gotta be a top 3 item on there because it's just so versatile. You put it on literally everything. It's amazing. You just, you're getting your turkey drippings and you're just putting in, some flour. It's just so easy to make. It's so delicious. Gravy just enhances the flavor of almost every single food item that is on your plate. I love it. Stuffing. So I was gonna make this comment about stuffing. I considered having it on my list because I'm like you. I grew up not liking stuffing, and then recently I've kind of come around to it. But I think it's because I started just like dousing it with gravy, essentially. And I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. I'm gonna continue to put a little bit on my plate every single year. I'm not the biggest fan still, but I have started to appreciate it, and it's because I load her up with gravy. Number 2, hot take. I'm a ham over turkey guy.
Oh,
Now, I eat the turkey. Typically, my family actually makes both for whatever reason. They're like,
my
yeah, we're gonna
mother
make
does
both.
too. My mother
Yeah,
does too.
and I take a little bit of turkey, but I take a few extra slices of ham because I love like a good like honey ham. Oh, it's so delicious.
My
I'm
issue is I get
I'm
tired of ham because it's just there's only one way really I eat ham, and it's just like as is. Like only other time
but
I've
it's
ever tried something
good.
different with
It-
ham is like I throw it in my eggs if I have breakfast. Like it's so tough to really enjoy ham for so many days because you have this huge thing of ham, and if nobody else is really eating it, I'm always the one stuck trying to figure out how to eat the rest of this damn ham.
Eat it as is, buds. I'll eat it
Next
for
time my mother makes ham, there's so much left. I'm gonna just ship a bunch of it. I'm gonna bring out a bunch to your place.
absolutely like she like a good sweet glazed ham.
Yeah, she puts. We have to put the glaze.
Buds. I'll eat that every single day of the week. Like that's what I'm saying. It's so high on my power rankings. I love it. I love a good glazed ham. It's delicious. Number one though, and just I can't believe that this is not even on the table at the Morassutti Thanksgiving dinners. Mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes are an elite Thanksgiving food item. It's a staple. I can't believe that you guys don't do mashed potatoes. Oh, it's number one for me, number one in my heart.
This is not that
Love
we don't
me
like
some
mashed
mashed
potatoes.
potatoes.
I love me some mashed potatoes, but we just do things a little differently.
Man, crazy, 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 crazy. All right. Well, Dave, enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family, and to everybody listening who somehow made it this long, listening to us yammer about nonsense. Enjoy Thanksgiving with your families as well. Enjoy the holiday. We will be back with y'all next week. Next week's it's go time, right? Game game 1 of 82 starts on Wednesday. So we'll kind of start looking into, what this final roster could look like, start getting into what our season predictions are. We got to do our over unders as well. It's a yearly staple here on Locked On Leafs. We got to go over our over under predictions. That's all coming up next week. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Though I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms. You receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead. Leave a like and a comment down below on YouTube, if you will. Let us know. Are you team mashed potatoes or no? What about stuffing? I thought that's all we want. We just want food topics because that's all people actually care to comment about, anyways, all the time. So let us know your Thanksgiving power rankings. All right, we'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Like I said, enjoy your Thanksgiving weekends and your time with the family. And yeah, we'll chat again next week. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.